The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office hires a twice ousted police chief to become their new division commander. That's what we're talking about in this episode on Watching the Watchers. We're talking about this gentleman, Patrick Melvin, who, according to this article from Meg O'Connor at the Phoenix New-Times, who does excellent reporting, published a little bit of a background on what has happened with Mr. Melvin as he's bounced around prior to coming back to Arizona. So he was the Salt River Police Department police chief. Then in May 2016, he was forced out of his role in that position. Ms. O'Connor goes into some of the background, says that really there was kind of some animosity, that Mr. Melvin was looking around trying to identify different jobs in different cities to become a police chief and was eventually pushed out of that position. Then he went over to Port Arthur in Texas and was working there for some time when he was also pushed out of that role. This is where it gets kind of interesting. So Ms. O'Connor was not able to pull the records, and we don't have them, from the Salt River Police Department or from his tenure there. They're not claiming any actual misconduct happened there, but it was just sort of a animosity or disloyalty or whatever it was, but he was pushed out of that role, which is why he went over to Port Arthur, Texas. Well, then he goes over to Texas, and there's kind of a pattern of discontent. They're not real happy with his performance. So he goes over there, and there are people from the city manager, Harvey Robinson, told Texas media outlets that he would have been terminated had he not resigned. So he said that they were very critical of the job that he was doing as it relates to Hurricane Harvey. The police union initiated a no confidence vote against him in 2017. And there are other city council members who say that his resignation was done in the best interest of the city, pointing to other grievances and other lawsuits that have been filed against Melvin since he was hired. So now he comes back to Arizona. Now he's the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office division commander. And this is kind of the whole point of why we do Watching the Watchers. We like to follow these people around because what ends up happening time and again is they will resign in lieu of being terminated. They'll resign in lieu of being fired. These grievances, these lawsuits, everything will pile up against these types of officers, and then they'll just resign and they'll go to a different state. They'll go to a different jurisdiction, and they'll get hired on there because as far as the police agencies are concerned, there is no substantiated misconduct. Those investigations are kind of cut short, and they're not a blemish on their record. They're not fired, they're not terminated, they just resign, and then they bounce around from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So from the Salt River PD over to Texas, back to Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, it just goes on and on and on. So this type of conduct, these types of grievances, these types of lawsuits are never going to show up in our personnel files when we're working on cases representing people who may or may not have had some interaction with this police officer. They're not going to show up because it's not going to be considered Brady material, and prosecutors are not going to tell us about it, which is why it's so important that our journalists, the people who write articles like this, like Meg O'Connor, are continually keeping this stuff at the forefront, and we're going to do the same. We're going to curate a lot of this material and provide it to you from a defense attorney's perspective so that you're aware of it and so that these things can't escape the public eye, public scrutiny. When these officers are bouncing around from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, kind of hoping that all of this gets kicked under the rug, we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to memorialize it right here on our channel on Watching the Watchers. So keep an eye out if you know anybody who's had any interaction with this officer, has any pending cases, has any forthcoming cases against this particular officer, Patrick Melvin, if he's supervising other officers in the field and he's involved in a criminal case, be sure to give our office a call. In the meantime, we're going to keep bringing you the news on any officers who are involved in misconduct, any types of problems throughout the criminal justice system, whether it's police, prosecutors, judges, politicians. We're going to bring it to you. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you can keep apprised of all of these developments. Until the next time, thanks for watching.